We stand united with people around the world who've been targeted by terrorists, from a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris.
This morning's terrorist attack in Tel Aviv is driven by the same hatred that has motivated similar such attacks in Paris, in Brussels, and across the world.
عملية تل أبيب الوقودية هي رد طبيعي على الإرهاب الإسرائيلي بحق الشعب الفلسطيني.
أنا أولويتي قضاء على أدوات إسرائيل في سوريا.
He can't link arms with world leaders in Paris to condemn terrorism when he links arms with Hamas back at home.
הטרור הזה תוקף את מדינת ישראל מאז הקמתה, ועכשיו הוא תוקף את העולם כולו, והגיע הזמן שהעולם כולו ילחם בטרור הזה כפי שמדינת ישראל נלחמת.
Good evening and welcome to the News Today. This evening we bring you a special broadcast of the News Today on two fronts. The terror attack this morning in a Tel Aviv bus and the highly tense situation on the Israel-Syria border with signs of a coming conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. First, this morning's story in Tel Aviv began at 7:28 a.m. when a 23-year-old man from the city of Tulkarem in the West Bank began stabbing passengers on a bus during their morning commute before being shot in the leg and apprehended in the scene of carnage. 12 people were left wounded, 3 of them seriously. The latest in the string of lone wolf attacks in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv that have alarmed the Israeli establishment, all in the midst of an Israeli election season. We will go tonight to our correspondent at the Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv, Shai Ben-Ari, Leslie Rizug, and Hisham Farid, and at the Israel-Lebanon border, Eli Ochenberg, Maxime Perez, and Amjad Abu Arafi. And joining me tonight here in the studio on set, our senior Middle East analyst, Ali Waked, good evening, and Avi Sakharov, good evening.
Good evening.
So, gentlemen, let's start by understanding, again, a lone wolf. Again, we're talking about something that maybe Israel cannot handle. Any country cannot handle these lone wolf attacks, but still it's an escalation, isn't it?
I cannot really agree more than that to your definition. Yes, one more step, one more escalation. This is the period that we're in it. This is the atmosphere, this is the situation. More lone wolves, more sporadic attacks. At the end of the day, I think that we won't get anything that is like complete quietness, complete calmness. This is not going to be the situation in the next months to come. With no political horizon, with no negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians, I think that we will see more of that.
And when we are talking about the Prime Minister today, the Prime Minister, the first thing that he does is finger pointing towards, of course, President Mahmoud Abbas, because of the incitement, because that he's not handling the situation as well as needed. These things are happening inside Israel.
Yeah, it was par excellence electoral declaration of Prime Minister. Lucy, I must agree with Avi when he says that this is one more step towards escalation, but we should pay attention to the fact that in the last years, Israel passed to face guerrilla organization after it had faced states and armies, and then it passed to face cells, and now it is the individuals. And every time the situation is reduced from the state to the guerrilla organization, to the cell, to the level of the individuals, it is much more difficult to collect intelligence about those people and to dress a portrait of the potential perpetrators. And this is why the Palestinian organizations are are pushing and enhancing and encouraging the Palestinians to go in this direction, because in this case, Israel cannot accuse Hamas, cannot accuse the Palestinian Authority, but it cannot point on specific person in the Palestinian Authority, as it was the case when it was at the level of the organization or even at the level of the cells. And in my opinion, the Israelis will have much more time until they dress a portrait of the potential perpetrators.
Like the rest of the world, I think, about all these lone wolf attacks. Before we will discuss further this subject, Ayman Siksik has the awful images and sounds of the day on a bus in Tel Aviv.
This was the sound Israel woke up to Wednesday morning. This phone call to the Magen David Adom emergency services, placed at 7:28 a.m. local time, broke the news of the day's terror attack. 12 people were injured in the stabbing attack carried out on a moving bus near the Ma'ariv junction in the center of Tel Aviv. 3 of the victims, including the bus driver, are now in serious condition. Commuters on the bus saw the events as they unfolded.
I heard screams, then I saw someone with a big knife. He was stabbing people. He stabbed the driver first and made him lose control of the bus. We tried to run, then the terrorist ran in our direction.
What helped many to get off the bus was the unlikely hero of the day, Liel Suissa, an 8th grader who was on the bus and whose ingenuity saved passengers valuable time in getting away from the terrorist.
Suddenly the terrorists came and started to stab. We all went back. Most of the passengers went my way. I sat on the bus and I heard people shouting. He was walking in the bus and suddenly went to the driver and stabbed him. He was shouting things, but I didn't really hear him. I turned and saw him stabbing the driver, and I ran to the back of the bus to get away from him together with the rest. He approached us, so I broke the window and we got out from there.
At this point, the turmoil on the road caught the attention of an Israeli prison service team, Nachshon unit, who were driving behind the vehicle.
The minute we saw the bus stop suddenly at a green light and people running off the bus, I knew it was a terrorist attack. We ran over following the direction of the terrorist. In the chase, I caught him on the right side, but he was able to stab another woman. We shot in the air trying to stop him, and we hit him on the leg to neutralize him. We arrested him and the police came.
The attacker, 23-year-old Mohammed Hamza Matrouk from Tul Karem in the West Bank, was nabbed by police and is now receiving medical attention. The video of his capture, after he was shot by security forces, marked the end of today's chase and the potential beginning of yet another escalation.
Yes, I-24 News correspondent Shai Ben-Ari is at Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv, where several of the wounded have been treated. Good evening, Shai. So, Shai, what is the current situation of the people who were wounded in this attack?
Right, Lucy. Really, the injured in today's terrorist attack are, in fact, dispersed among 3 different hospitals here in Tel Aviv. We are, of course, at Ichilov Hospital, not far from the scene of that attack. Here, 4 people are currently being treated from this incident. 2 of them are characterized at this moment as in a serious condition, 2 others in medium. Among the injured here is the driver himself, Herzl Biton of the bus, 55 years old. He was, in fact, engaged in a struggle with the terrorist himself. He suffered 2 stab wounds. Another 4 are also interned at Tel Shomer Hospital a few miles from here. One of those is characterized as serious but stable condition. There is no danger to his life at this moment. 2 others there in medium condition, 1 lightly injured. There were 6, in fact, released from Tel Shomer Hospital. 15 were released from Ichilov Hospital, where we are today. And at Wolfson Hospital, a 3rd hospital in Tel Aviv, that is where the terrorist himself is basically being treated at this moment. He suffered light injuries after being shot in the legs, and he has been interned there and has also been interrogated by security personnel.
Yeah, Shai, what right now the reactions that are coming from the government about this latest terror attack?
Yes, well, what we've been hearing from the government, from Prime Minister Netanyahu himself, is basically putting all of the blame, interestingly, on none other than the Palestinian President Abu Mazen, basically citing incitement for these kinds of terrorist attacks this not only from the Prime Minister, also from Economy Minister Naftali Bennett, the head of the Jewish Home Party, saying very similar things. And it is interesting to note that this kind of criticism is not being directed towards, say, Hamas, for example, but to the head of the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian president, basically saying that what is responsible for this attack is the kind of incitement you see in the Palestinian media, which is at least indirectly directed by the Palestinian Authority itself. Indeed, from the interrogation of the terrorist himself, it has emerged that he basically mentioned Palestinian media programs that indeed call for reactions to the provocations on the Temple Mount, for example, what are termed as provocations by Israel, of course, as a justification for these kinds of terrorist attacks. And indeed, that is the link being made by the Prime Minister Netanyahu today, and as well as the Economy Minister Naftali Bennett.
Yes, Shaban Ari, thank you very, very much for this. And of course, you will continue updating us during this evening edition. Gentlemen, I want to take this one step forward. And when we are talking about these lone wolf acts, a lot of people said today, wow, he went and stabbed people. You know, this is the Israeli way to try to deal with things. He went to stab people. He didn't bomb himself in the bus. But the act that he didn't bomb himself in a bus and people who are going and bombing themselves in buses, this is something that we haven't seen, thank God, for a long time here in Israel. And it's because maybe we can say because of the security arrangement between the Israelis and the Palestinians that are still being kept, that Israel and the Palestinians are still keeping this security. And this is why we don't see this terror cells, we don't see acts of bombings in buses.
Although everything that we heard, all the accusations that we hear from Netanyahu against Abbas, Abbas against Netanyahu, all this UN approach, the ICC approach, whatever. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that the security coordination between the two sides continues, and it's better than any time else in the history between the PA and the State of Israel. Meaning that although everything that we hear around us, still the Israeli Shin Bet passes the information to the Palestinian intelligence and vice versa. Meaning when Israel needs someone to be arrested, sometimes it does use the Palestinian security forces. And then again, the Palestinian security forces are doing the same. When they have the info and they know that they cannot do the arrest, they pass the information to the Israeli side, and the Shin Bet and the IDF are the ones that are doing that.
Which proves that the declaration of the Prime Minister didn't have any base. The Palestinian Authority is doing everything in order to stop the escalation, and we know that the Palestinian Authority in the last weeks even put in jail some Fatah militants that came into contact with Gaza, Hamas, with Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the Palestinian Authority seemed very determined not to let anything to spoil its diplomatic campaign in the Security Council of the UN. So it won't be accused by the Israelis that on one hand they are giving green light for violence and terror, and on the other hand they are seeking independence and they are trying to put the pressure and the blame over Israel.
You are talking, yes.
You see the declaration today that was made by Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is just like we are saying, then again, another escalation. It's then again, another declaration. This is the same old declaration that we heard a month ago, 2 months ago. It seems like Bibi Netanyahu is only copying what he said a couple of weeks ago and then saying that again. For him, putting Abbas, putting the Palestinian terror, putting the Palestinian violence on the table, this is good. What his advisors for his campaign are telling him, put the security issues on the table. Don't let them focus only about social and economic issues. We want them to talk about security, security, security. I'm not sure that they're right, by the way. I'm not sure that if we will see more of these attacks, it will be that good for Mr. Netanyahu.
The question is on March 18th, a day after the elections, when maybe there is a move from the international community to put the Israelis and the Palestinians around the table, how will our next prime minister, if in the case it is Benjamin Netanyahu, will justify the fact that he's got back to the table to negotiate with the Palestinians that a couple of weeks ago accused them of encouraging terror and violence?
After winning the elections, I don't think that he will care much about how to justify himself or not. Benjamin Netanyahu is doing everything possible in order to recruit the diplomatic channels, the political changes in all over the world, including the U.S. Look what's going to happen next month. He's being invited by the House of
Congress.
Representatives, the Republican House of Representatives, to talk, although he's not invited by the President Obama, meaning that there's a whole scene here in which the Prime Minister is doing everything possible in order to play with Israel interests, national interests, in order to bring him his own victory.
Before we will continue from this exact point about diplomacy, I want to join to this conversation. On the line is Israeli police spokesman Miki Rosenfeld. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you.
So what is the assessments that you have for the next few days, and how you are preparing yourself in the police forces for the next, let's say, few days? Are we going to see any scenes, similar scenes that we saw in Jerusalem just a few weeks ago?
Well, first of all, after this morning's terrorist attack that took place in Tel Aviv, police assessments, security assessments were made on a national level by the Israeli Police Commissioner. As of now, extra police units are also in the Tel Aviv area to prevent any further incidents. But in terms of the next 24, 48 hours, there'll be extra police units with emphasis on Jerusalem in order to prevent any further incidents from taking place. And apart from that, our extra units, both border police units and undercover units, will continue regular police operations both in and around the Judea and Samaria area to prevent any further incidents.
Yes, Miki Rosenfeld, you know, for the last few weeks and the last, it seems that the situation in one way or another in Jerusalem has have calmed down, and I'm trying to understand how this situation has calmed down. It's because you had the security arrangements also with the intelligence that is coming from the West Bank and coming from East Jerusalem, or it calmed down because you were able to control what happened in Jerusalem?
Well, it's due to a strategic decision that was made on a national level, having extra police units, more than 1,200 police officers in and around the Israeli Arab neighborhoods, not just working at central bus stations and public areas across Jerusalem, but also to actually physically be inside the Israeli Arab neighborhoods, villages, etc., in order to prevent incidents from taking place. We also use a lot of technology which is being used by the Israeli police, and drones were used as well to see what was going on ahead of time, and thus we were able to reduce the number of serious incidents and also the scale of incidents, which is something which has been continuing in Jerusalem. We've seen the positive results over the last 3 weeks in Jerusalem. Things have been relatively quiet. But in connection with this morning's attack, when we're talking about a lone terrorist that comes in illegally and is working illegally, and carries out a terrorist attack one morning, that is very difficult to prevent. And therefore, the response time is very, very significant. But at the same time, we're now stressing police and border police operations in picking up illegal workers all across the country.
Miki, because we talked about these lone wolf attacks, and this is, like you said, it's almost impossible to try and prevent it, because go figure what is passing through someone's mind at that morning. But are you preparing any profiling or trying to understand or trying to look for people who are like more likely to do these kind of acts? Do you have some kind of a list?
The Israeli National Police works together with different security circles, both with the Israeli National Border Police and also obviously with the intelligence circles inside Israel, focusing and trying to find out and map out, in fact, who are those potential suspects. And obviously, as you can imagine, we're tracking those potential suspects and preventing them from being involved in terrorist-related incidents. But at the same time, our undercover units and the regular police patrol units are carrying out operations 24/7. They're working yesterday night, they're working the night before, we're working constantly. Our police officers are not sitting around at the police stations waiting for that emergency call to come in. Our officers are active, our officers are training, our officers are taking part in police operations all the time.
Yes,
and this is significant to improve the security across the country and keep things completely under control, which is our main emphasis.
Yes, Miki Rosenfeld, thank you very, very much for this phone call with us. So, gentlemen, we were just talking about the diplomatic, let's say, efforts that Israel is conducting or not conducting, because it seems that the Palestinians, like you said, are continuing to act in the diplomatic arena like nothing is happening. We're reacting, we're saying that we condemn or don't condemn this act, but we're continuing our way in the diplomatic arena. How it will affect trying to convince the world that the Palestinians are actually seeking for peace?
Well, I don't think it will affect there is a unanimity among the international community that if we should point on somebody who is doing everything in order to keep this region stable and calm, it is the Palestinian Authority. Abu Mazen is new and is believed that he is against any kind of terror, any kind of violence. In the last years, it is maybe less than the period of the Oslo Agreement. Very few members of the Palestinian security forces were arrested by the Israeli security services under the accusation of being involved in terror or in violence. And this is the clear strategy, clear instructions of the Palestinian Authority that had also cleaned its security apparatus from any infiltration of elements that can support or be involved or giving logistic or moral or financial help and support to this kind of attacks. This is why I don't believe it will affect. But in case there is a repetition of such kind of attacks, and a month ago we had not far from here, from our station in the railway station, a soldier who was stabbed to death. In case of an accumulation of these incidents, the Israelis, in my opinion, will succeed to convince the international community that we should not talk only about the political arrangement and political agreement, but also about security arrangements.
Right now, the government of Israel is trying to convince the Israeli people, not the international community, that Benjamin Netanyahu is the right thing for the state of Israel, that the Benjamin Netanyahu is the best thing that happened to Israel since the foundation of the state.
But isn't it, in one way or another, convincing the people who are already convinced?
Yes, no, but we are in a campaign. Look, we are in an election period. Look, next month, then again, I'm sorry that I'm going back to the issue of the U.S. and Israel relations, but this is a dramatic, critic issue for the relations between the two states. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to speak in the House of Representatives, probably, not in order to change the international community approach to Israel, but in order to affect the Israeli public opinion, not anything else. Now, I'm not that sure that it's going to work. Maybe it's going to work for the Republican public opinion. Maybe, at some point, even Netanyahu is going to be the next candidate for presidency in the U.S. for the Republican.
This is what I'm trying to understand, because wasn't he supposed to go and speak about Iran? Wasn't he supposed to go and speak about convincing the Americans that Iran is still acting very active on its nuclear program?
It's not only about Iran, it's also about radical Islam. And we know that Netanyahu managed to deal with Hamas in the last war, or maybe not. We know that he managed to deal with the Iranians, or maybe not. We know that this is the special man to deal with terrorism in the Middle East, or maybe not.
You can tell me that he can do copy-paste from his UN speech. And
what is Avi saying is that Benjamin Netanyahu will use this speech in order to brand himself as the ultimate Israeli leader, master, not Mr., even master security. It's part of the fact that in the last month he cannot say that he ran the security situation at the best. But the question is whether the Americans will retaliate in intervening in the elections campaign, and if they will decide they have the capacity to do it.
But the Americans just said that what Benjamin Netanyahu said
it's against the protocol.
Yeah, it's against
the White House just this evening announced that this trying to convince Netanyahu to come to speak is against the protocol.
Gentlemen, try to explain to me something, because I remember late Prime Minister Rabin, when we remember the period of bombing.
Was also a Republican guy, Rabin.
May he rest in peace. I remember this period that everyone talked that it was like the less, it was one of the most hard period of times that Israel experienced concerning attack and terror attacks. And it didn't help Yitzhak Rabin very good. There's all these bombings that happen in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem and every part of Israel. And now we're talking about that every single security terror attack that is happening in Israel is actually helping Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't understand how.
No, this is when Shimon Peres lost the elections back in 1996 because of the attacks. Hamas, in a way, saved Netanyahu in these elections of 1996. So the fear is that, again, among some Palestinians, among some Israelis, that even with these terrorist attacks, they're going to help Netanyahu to regain again the prime minister's office. So yes, it might help him at the end of the day. I know that it sounds terrible, but bringing the issue of security back on the table, while you know that most of the Israelis look at Benjamin Netanyahu and saying that he's the right man to deal with the security threats that Israel has.
Because what I'm trying,
you know, that it's not Netanyahu
two wars in Gaza. One war is about to reopen in the north of Israel. Stabbings and security and almost a third intifada in Jerusalem. All this is actually convincing the Israelis and convincing the world that Benjamin Netanyahu is the master security guy.
Until now, the polls are proving that the Israelis are insisting on the fact that the priority should be given to the social and to the economy. This is on one hand. The second hand, if the security situation will play for the favor of somebody, the polls are showing that it's not for the moment. Until now, they are not playing for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu. It is serving the more radical right-wing Bennett and the others, not Benjamin Netanyahu. And this is critical to watch. If in the coming days we are not going to see a change in the situation, in the campaign, I think it is a clear sign that the Israelis, no matter what is the situation, the security situation, they want that their problems of the day-to-day be dealt and be at the center of the campaign. It is true that when there is a security noise on the background, it will help the prime minister, but not at the level he hoped it will do.
What is from now? What is, let's say the next step that the Palestinians will do? Because the Palestinians cannot control right now what is happening with these Lone Wolf Acts, and they cannot control actually how they are going to react with the knowledge of Mahmoud Abbas at the end of the day, that he knew that maybe there was some kind of a coup was made, a coup made. In his to try to take him out of his office. So what is his next step?
Look, there are a couple of steps that the Palestinians are planning for the next couple of months, but I don't think that they have a real strategy that will bring them better results. They know that everything that they will choose, whether to go to the ICC or to go to the Security Council again or not to do anything, they face all bad options. And this is what they need to do, to choose between the bad and the worse. And no one can say which is bad and which is worse. It's not very easy for them. Not doing anything will bring their own public opinion against them. Doing something like approaching the ICC or approaching the Security Council will bring more problems with the Israelis and holding the taxes money and no salaries to pay, etc.
And this is why they are using every international incident like the attacks in Paris to postpone their initiative.
Yes, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for being with me in this part of the show. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes, and I'll be back with the rest of this special edition of the News Today. Don't go anywhere.
We stand united with people around the world who've been targeted by terrorists, from a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris.
This morning's terrorist attack in Tel Aviv is driven by the same hatred that has motivated similar such attacks in Paris, in Brussels, and across the world.
عملية تل أبيب الوقودية هي رد طبيعي على الإرهاب الإسرائيلي بحق الشعب الفلسطيني.
أنا أولويتي قضاء على أدوات إسرائيل في سوريا.
he can't link arms with world leaders in Paris to condemn terrorism when he links arms with Hamas back at home.
הטרור הזה תוקף את מדינת ישראל מאז הקמתה, ועכשיו הוא תוקף את העולם כולו, והגיע הזמן שהעולם כולו ילחם בטרור הזה, כפי שמדינת ישראל נלחמת.
And welcome back to this special edition. We shift now to the northern front, to the Israel-Syria border, and a possible conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. The purported Israeli strike on Quneitra on Sunday left 6 Hezbollah members dead, along with a high-ranking Iranian general. And ever since, threats of a fierce response from Hezbollah and its backer Iran have been constant. The IDF is on high alert along the country's northern border for a response that could see the militant group use its massive arsenal of long-range missiles. To look at this front, with me now is Chilit Barel, former director of the Israeli National Security Council. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And also Dr. Amichai Magen, head of the Governance and Political Violence Program at the IDC. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. And also Mr. Dimitri Diliani, member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. So, gentlemen, my lady, let's start with you. Is it the correct time to open a front with Syria, to open a front with Hezbollah, when everything that is happening with the turmoil and everything that is happening right now in the Middle East is just boiling all over?
I think this is a question that is always asked around these targeted killings. It is not unique to this one, although this one played out in a bit of a different way than maybe was expected with the presence of the Iranian general. Is it the right time is always a question. It's always something that could cause significant escalation. Certainly nobody is looking for it after what we just experienced this summer, certainly with everything that's going on internally in elections. However, these things usually are driven also by operational calculations, and it's often only after the fact that we really know if it was the right time or if it wasn't the right time, and if the benefits of such a targeting actually outweigh the downfalls, which we saw with what happened when we got Nasrallah instead of Moussaoui. But there were other situations in which those targeted killings did serve important operational purposes.
After Nasrallah giving his speech or giving his interview on Friday, some people in Israel said that they waited, like they counted the minutes until Israel will react to this interview, and surprise, surprise, Israel in one way or another reacted, reportedly or allegedly reacted a few days after. And it's not like it wasn't a known fact. It's not that it wasn't a known fact that the Iranian generals and what is happening on the Revolutionary Guard are like patrolling along the border with Israel, that Hezbollah is patrolling along the border with Israel, that missiles are from Iranian missiles are in the Syrian soil being targeted towards Israel. This is not a secret. This is not something that Israel didn't know before. It's not a secret also that there are some tunnels in the north of Israel. So why? Why, when Nasrallah is saying that any attack on Syria will be an attack on Hezbollah, a few days later we see that there is an attack on Syria? Why?
Well, it's difficult to say with 100% certainty because there are operational calculations. Some of them are not publicly known. So we're dealing with probabilities. I think the right way to think about it is that Israel, certainly since the end of the Second Lebanon War in 2006, vis-a-vis Hezbollah, is trying to walk a very fine line. On the one hand, there is, I think, a strong Israeli interest in non-entanglement. Israel does not want to get entangled in the Syrian civil war. Israel does not want to get entangled in Lebanon for a variety of reasons. And at the same time, Israel has to maintain effective deterrence against Hezbollah. And getting that balance right is a very tricky dance. What's curious about this particular event, apart from the political constellation and the nearness of this strike to the general elections, and some have alluded to this, is that Israel has articulated 3 red lines for when it will act against Hezbollah or Syria. No transfer of high-quality non-conventional arms, non-intervention in Israel, and then the other third line really has to do with sort of weapons of mass destruction, right? As much as we know at the moment, it doesn't seem like this particular strike sort of fulfilled any one of these red lines.
Let's not forget that Israel was really hurried to say we didn't know that the Iranian general was there. It's like we didn't.
I think it's very unlikely that Israel knew.
Apologized for something that it said, "Oh my God, I made a mistake. It's not good that I did that. I need to say." Okay, I passed message that I didn't know that the Iranian.
I think it's very unlikely that Israel knew specifically that it was targeting an Iranian general. I think that's unlikely.
It's also important to note that it was not an official apology, and nor was I would say, slip of the mouth of this officer necessarily something
but it's not an
sanctioned.
An official apology, like Israel's not officially talking with Hamas. It's like, it's on the same scale.
It does break the denial strategy that Israel had taken towards pretty much every strike. Yeah. Yes. So it is a bit different.
So this, what is happening in the north of Israel, this in one way or another shifts the focus from the Palestinian issue. It shifts the focus from what is happening on the Gaza Strip and from maybe what Mahmoud Abbas is trying to do, to put a focus on the West Bank, to put a focus on the Gaza Strip, to put the focus back on the Palestinians in the diplomatic arena. And this is not good for the Palestinians right now.
Well, this has nothing to do with the diplomatic arena. I think this attack on Syrian soil killing Lebanese, Iranians, is mainly targeted towards an audience inside of Israel. As the gentleman mentioned, we are nearing general elections in Israel. Netanyahu is known to be the master of PR. This would be the perfect thing to show that he is Mr. Security. You see, lately, Netanyahu has proved to be a failure in front of most of the Israel, or big part of the Israeli public, in terms of security. People do not feel secure, personally secure in Israel. So Netanyahu wanted to address this point by killing people on different soil, actually working towards a total different battle with ISIS that he criticizes all the time. In other words, his view of ISIS, these guys were working on implementing his views, and they were fighting ISIS while he's not. So he killed them. He killed them.
These guys were not picking cherries on the border.
No.
They were not picking cherries.
We
should also ask what's an Iranian general doing on the border with Israel?
We all know that
he wasn't picking cherries.
I know he was not picking cherries. You know that there's 30,000 ISIS. We can discuss producing fruits later, but there are 30,000 ISIS fighters that have been pushed by Assad regime towards the south.
Which means
the occupied Golan, north of Israel, and Jordan. And this has been a great concern. These people were there on a mission to continue fighting against ISIS, something that Israel claims that it's of its interest anyway. So this is to discredit.
How can you say that with certainty?
How would I?
How would you know that?
How would I know
that was their mission? Why is
there's
Jihad Murayna, the son of Hezbollah leader?
There's internal war in Israel. Plus, I'll tell you something. If Israel, if that was the case, Israel did not say anything about these people taking any action against the state of Israel. They did not mention any kind of justification for that murder.
Mr. Giuliani, you cannot tell me that you think that these people that were patrolling in the north border were really naive and really were like their face for peace, and then they waited for to give flowers to Israel.
I never said that.
Let's not be naive.
It would be idiotic to think that I said that, by the way. Because I never said that.
I think there's a different premise that you raised that also needs to be challenged, which is, regardless of how you want to characterize these people, that the timing was political or the motivation was primarily a political motivation. True, we are in an election time and it's a very precarious time, and none of us are so naive to think that political considerations are out of the game. However, it's not exactly how it works with these targeted killings. The general staff does not pick and choose when it can address these targets, these operations. So it's not exactly something that can be primarily political.
But there's a screening.
Whether something that the general staff kicks up is approved or not approved might very well be influenced by political considerations. No one can deny that. But that this was initiated from a political point of view, I think is naive about how these things are done.
There are opportunities, and these
I have a correspondent who's freezing outside in the northern border, and I want to talk with her before she's becoming a bucket of ice. Good evening, Ellie. Thank you very much for joining us. So what is the current situation in the northern border?
Well, I must say that the heated debate in the studio is supplying more action that I can supply in my report. But 3 days after the airstrike in Syria, the northern borders of Israel are still very, very tense. And that, of course, means reinforcement of the IDF forces along the Lebanese and the Syrian borders with Israel, the deployment of the Iron Dome anti-missile systems, and most importantly, a high alert mode for all divisions on the ground. And evidence to this high alertness can be found only a couple of hours ago, where a suspicious movement, a suspected infiltration was spotted by the IDF units right along the border between Israel and Lebanon. The residents of several communities right along the border were instructed to stay indoors, to stay in their houses. The roadways were blocked by police, but shortly after the reported suspicious infiltration, it was found out to be a false alert. But even though it is just another indication to how sensitive is the situation here on the ground, again, only a few days after the attack in Syria.
Yes, Elio Gomberg, thank you very much for this. And let's see the report that you made today from the north, and we will continue talking, I promise you.
Northern Israel remains on high alert Wednesday, fearing a possible Hezbollah retaliation attack, and citizens are trying to keep to their daily routines while remaining prepared for the worst.
People are much more tense and concerned about the situation. Every day we hear bombing, and we feel the growing tension coming with Syria.
Military convoys leading tanks and armored personnel carriers were seen in the last couple of days making their way up north. Northern residents who rely financially on the area's tourism already notice the tension is hurting their businesses.
We are the ones who are mostly affected by the situation because we have guest houses in the north, because many people who booked a room have called us and canceled.
But most of Israelis' northern citizens are unfortunately used to the constant threat and prefer to remain as calm as possible.
I'm sure it's a bit tense. I think that you find that the people that live in the north are kind of used to it, and we tend to try to think of the more positive, although having that kind of information over your head all the time certainly does affect you.
Most people here have been through enough run-ups to war that they know that this can happen and go up right to the very edge and then come back down again.
In the meantime, IDF forces positioned along the border with Lebanon are still on high alert, but are hoping it will all quietly fade away.
I promise you that I will give you the floor to answer. Yes.
No, what I was saying is that I'm sure there's a process, and there's a screening process, and there are opportunities to commit such, in my view, crimes that get to be approved by the Prime Minister or not. Now, I'm not saying that the Prime Minister told him, oh, well, look around and find this. It's not as simple as that. But it's within a process that the Prime Minister picks the time that benefits him politically. Plus, you have to understand that fear is a big chunk of the right-wing government of Israel platform in elections. So, and you can see from the report. Third thing, it kind of distracts the Israelis from the fact that Israel is becoming more and more internationally isolated, and they want to bring the elections battle home over security. I believe that this is a good time for Netanyahu to do such a thing, to gain political points, but at the same time, I see his opponents have really good reason to say that, well, Mr. Security is not doing it. Everybody's afraid.
So, you know, you have the ability of Benjamin Netanyahu to answer something else that people are asking you. This is amazing. It's a gift.
He's a great PR master.
And you're learning from him, I see, because I asked you something about the Palestinian and you answered me something else completely. And I'm still waiting for this answer. But putting Iran into all this big mess is something that maybe Israel is not really considering with, let's say, not taking it seriously, let me put it in one way or another, because putting Iran in this mess right now, this changes the equation
Iran
completely.
Already is in this mess. There's a shadow war going on between Iran and Israel for a long time, and sometimes, most of the time, this shadow war happens in the shadows, and sometimes it pops up. So this is part of our dynamic. My sense, Lucy, is that the important picture here, the important story here, is that Israel is trying to calm things down. Israel is trying to understate tensions. My sense is that behind closed doors, assessments of the tension, the tension is actually, the potential for an escalation is actually higher than we tend to suspect. It was just been reported that Benny Gantz, the Israeli chief of staff, has cancelled a planned trip to a NATO summit that he was supposed to go to. And I think that there are probably good reasons for the Israeli security establishment to be apprehensive about the possibility of escalation in the north. Let's remember that sometimes escalations happen when you don't want them. This happened in '73. This happened in 2006. Nobody chose this, but it happened. Secondly, we have to also understand the political dynamics underplaying in Iran and Lebanon and within Hezbollah, not just within Israel. Hezbollah's raison d'etre is its resistance against Israel, and it hasn't been doing a lot of that resistance since 2006. It's deeply bogged down in the Syrian civil war. It is suffering a tremendous amount of criticism within Lebanese society that Hezbollah has betrayed its mission and is fighting other people's wars, and the Shia in Lebanon are paying the price. And so my sense is that over time, as we get away from the 2006 war, first of all, Hezbollah is getting stronger, more and more missiles, more and more battle experience, but also they have to justify the resistance symbol. And I fear that the deterrence, to the degree that it was established in 2006, is gradually eroding away. And this, regardless of what the Iranian interest might be, I think that there may be a genuine Iranian interest to use Hezbollah as a proxy to create a distraction. We're entering the last 2 years of an American presidency. The Iranians are desperate to raise oil prices. It may be also part of the calculation. So we have to take all of these factors into account.
Yes, and Iran is in the middle of a lot of talks with the West.
Exactly. The big elephant in the room, right, is the nuclear talks, the P5+1 in Iran, and how that plays in. And that actually plays into a very interesting power struggle within Iran, because there are those, mostly in the side of the IRGC, who wouldn't mind seeing these tensions interfere with the process that is going on between the P5+1 and Iran on the nuclear negotiations, which are very, very delicate and difficult as it is. And it's very unclear what the future of those negotiations are. And I think in Iran it's still very divided regardless what they want to see come out of there. So there are those fractions in Iran where it would serve them, this tension. But I have to also address the point about Lebanon and Iran. Look, we've been fighting proxy wars in Lebanon with Iran. Clearly, it will only intensify if Iran goes nuclear, because then the conventional level interacts with the nuclear level in a completely different way, and we should expect many new adventures. And we can't, as Israelis, not act in Lebanon because an Iranian general might be there. So, having said that, I don't think it was anybody's intention to target an Iranian general, but he was there picking cherries or not, and this is where we are.
So before we are continuing here, let's see what Iran thinks about this and about the involvement and let's say the escalation that is happening right now. With us from the Golan Heights next to the Syrian border is Hamad Awidat, reporter for the Iranian Press TV. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Lucy.
So Hamad, how does Iran see this recent escalation after the killing of a big general from Iran that patrolled picking or not picking cherries on the border? How does Iran see this?
You know, today there was a lot of speech from the Iranian side, especially also from the Hezbollah, that they are going to react for the military action that Israel have been did a few days ago. And what we know that today also that the Russians they already did an agreement between them and between the Iranians about supporting them and giving them the S-400 and S-300 missiles that they have. And also there's some general there, and he said today that he's going to attack Israel and he's going to open a war and he's going to burn everything here in the area. Just he's waiting a few time and he's going to do it. That's what he published.
Hamad, but we know, talks aside and acts aside, these are two different things. And we are hearing a lot about this so-called attacks against Israel and retaliation against Israel. But is it worth it right now when Iran is in the middle of the P5+1 talks, trying to regain maybe some kind of a position in front of the West? Is it really a clever move to retaliate against Israel?
You know, I can't talk more about what's going on there in Iran and what the politics there they are talking about. But what I can tell you that here in the area where I'm standing now, just behind me, I don't know if you can see it with the sky. I'm talking about 50 meters. That Jaffa Port, they are far away from here, and they can see us, and we can see them. And I can shout now and to talk with them, the guys there. It's Israeli border. It's in the Golan Heights, and just a few hours ago, especially also the Israeli army, they say that they have information that there's some military stuff or job or on the border. They know and they feel that there's something here. Because that they closed all the area and they closed the roads, here in the area, and they ask all the Israelis that they are living in the settlements here to stay in their homes and to prepare their bunkers, and to be ready for any urgent thing that can be in the next few hours. So I think the area here and the location in the field talk different than the politics, what they are talking about in their salons or in their parliaments or on the TV.
Yes, definitely. Hamad, with that, it always looks different on the ground. Thank you very, very much for this talk with us. Do you want to answer me? Is it going to shift the focus from the Palestinians?
No, it's not. I mean, if the goal is to really for Netanyahu to bring the battle home, it was going to last a few days, and unfortunately, the attack today in Tel Aviv brought it back right away. That there's something boiling right nearby, and it's much more important and much more dangerous, much more vital than Iran or Hezbollah that hasn't been doing anything since 2006. But I have to add one point, that by doing this, Netanyahu really raised the popularity of Hezbollah, especially in Lebanon, where, as you said, the platform of resisting, they haven't been acting on it since 2006. Now he gave it back to them. Also in Syria, because Syrians now are divided between the two camps. You know,
and he's also in a big mess right now.
And that helps him out a lot in terms of popularity. I'm talking about pure popularity, no military capabilities to that, but. This is what he has done, and at the same time, I don't think he will run too far with shifting focus from even with ploys like going to Congress and then being denied, or talks about being denied going to Congress and all this stuff. All these games are just the world has gotten used to Netanyahu and his game, and nobody's buying his stuff anymore.
I think that might be true, but the real question is what the Israeli public is feeling about all this, because the world, as we saw, plays into it through a spectrum here in Israel. I think it's very true that the Palestinian issue will take precedence, and in the end of the day, I think you also need to consider that the sense of security of the citizens of Israel is what's going to motivate them during the election. And this last action hasn't necessarily raised that sense of security. Certainly today's events in Tel Aviv have not raised that sense of security. Yeah. And so if it were a political move, it's a huge gamble and not necessarily one that will play out beneficially.
Yeah. If Palestinians want to move ahead on the peace process, then stabbing 16 or 30 innocent Israeli civilians on a bus 2 months before national elections is not serving your cause.
I absolutely agree that this was not beneficial to us. I reject it on political level, moral level, on every other level, and I think that it hasn't been beneficial to us. But at the same time, until now, Netanyahu has failed to employ that to greatest extent to his benefit before the elections, because there were other voices saying, what's going on, Mr. Security, you're failing.
Yeah, but you know, it works like sometimes we're looking at the Israelis and the Palestinians, and in one way or another, they are really similar, because any bad situation just helps, let's say, we're not saying that anyone here is the bad guy, but helps the bad guy. Like if the bad situation right now in the Gaza Strip is helping Hamas, the bad situation right now that is happening, Mr. Security, or the bad situation that is happening right now, Israel, is not going to tell the Israelis that are used with Benjamin Netanyahu solving these security problems, or used to Benjamin Netanyahu. It's basically helping Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's the same awakening. Now in Gaza, there's an awakening that, oh, who put us through this? It's Hamas. And I believe that the Israelis are starting to get through an awakening. Look, who put us through this?
Are the Palestinians getting through awakening?
Is Netanyahu and his right-wing government continuing with the settlements? I don't want to go through the details.
Are the Palestinians going with awakening? Like the Israelis
in Gaza, I think the popularity of Hamas in Gaza, the declining popularity of Hamas in Gaza, and the increase of popularity of Fatah in Gaza is a clear indication.
There's a clear difference between us, because we have this thing called a democracy, where the people can peacefully decide whether Mr. Netanyahu will stay or not. Unfortunately, in Gaza, that's not the case.
In Gaza, no.
Gentlemen,
I just want to reiterate something that I saw quickly. That the only phone call that the Israelis really fear is the one from the bank.
With that, we're finished.